Hi, this is Gary Audin, and I'm bringing you an EDUcast, sponsored by Sangoma and Telecom Reseller. It's called Link in a Box, Simplified Implementation. And today, on our presentation, we have Frederic, Dickey, and myself. Frederic Dickey is a VP of Product Management, Marketing, and Services for Sangoma. We've talked before on other EDUcasts. Thank you, Frederic, and welcome to the EDUcast.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Now, one of the things I think is important for those listening is you understand what we're going to be covering here. And we're talking about unified communications, but unified communications as done by Skype. And Skype for Business, which is the new name for Link. We're also going to discuss what the server's role is in all of this. Although you're making phone calls between two endpoints, the server is an important part of the conversation. A next point that's important is that Microsoft is not a hardware vendor. They're a software vendor, so you need other components to make this work right. One is a gateway, another is a session border controller. So what Frederic is going to talk about is their solution, the Sangoma solution called Express for Link, and how that works. And then at the very end, we're going to go into resources that may be useful for you. But to set the table clear and define things so we all speak the same language, Frederic, why don't you define unified communications for us first before we move on?
Yeah, sure. It's a lot of acronyms or a lot of terms in technology become overused and abused, and the meaning is changed or is different for many people. So, what unified communication is daily in our working lives or regular lives. We use all kinds of tools for communicating. We have, we can use our normal phone, from the Mabel company. We can use Skype. We can use emails. We can use Microsoft Office or other Office tools to generate documents. So, and all of these things are very useful as a standalone, tool or functionality. The issue is when, sometimes you get into communications where you wish, maybe you start with a conference call and then suddenly, I would like to share with you a presentation I'm working on, and to be able to do it on the fly using the same application. So today, a lot of these applications are in their own silos, and what unified communication is providing solutions that allow you to have, I would say, the different modalities of communication, but being able to use them from the same single tool, as opposed to multiple different applications.
So what we're talking about here is really enforcing, enabling, implementing collaboration solutions. But what we're going to move into the next screen is really how Microsoft approaches this. And they used to call this Link, but now they call it Skype for Business. Would you spend some time on that?
Yes, exactly. So there are many vendors that offer unified communication solutions. In the case of Microsoft, they've been branding their product, Microsoft Link, up to now. With the acquisition of Skype, that is very much in use in consumer-type deployment, they've renamed their new version Skype for Business. And that's their answer for UC solutions. And from you see there's a lot of icons and pictures here. When you look at the left, these screenshots are basically how the tool looks like on your computer. So from that little window that runs on your computer, this little link or this little Skype for Business client, you can launch, you can call your peers, you can call people on their cell phone, you can IM, you can do video call, you can do many things. So that's their answer. A lot of times, it changes the way you work a lot because you can launch everything from your computer, but there's also complementary ways that you can interface with Link, like you see these pictures of various phones. Various vendors will offer, a lot of end users still prefer to use a phone when they want to make regular phone calls. So you have these phones that are certified and talk the protocol of Microsoft Link. And here we see, there's Snom, there's Astra, and Polycom. There's many vendors. But that's the point of view of the end user, what we're seeing here. Simple, piece of software or telephone that you interact with to enable all your communications.
Can you spend a moment and tell us what's happened with Skype for Business now that they're really launching it more so into the voice and the bigger collaboration world.
Yeah. In a way, the Skype for Business is simply a rebranding of Lync. They could have called it Lync 2015, right? And it would be pretty much the same, but there's a strong brand. With Skype, Microsoft introduced a lot of facilitating the way of interacting between Skype, the Skype that is free, that everybody knows I would say more as a consumer user, and making it easier to work with Skype for Business. But in a sense, it's a new version, just like you would be upgrading from Office 2010 to Office 2013 or 2016. SFB or Skype for Business is now the corporate business UC solution from Microsoft. And there's some improvements. Like I said, better interaction with Skype, but it's essentially an evolution of Lync.
Now, when I looked in the next picture, I realized there's a lot of components here that you have to make this work. Would you go through some of this for us?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, right, to enable from a simple little software that sits on your computer to enable all these types of communications, there needs to be infrastructure in the background in the data center, that will enable all of this stuff. And if you can stand it, I could have made this slide more complex. I attempted to make it simpler, but there's many things. There's parts, for instance, in the middle, with my mouse moving here, is around the SFB server. There's the Skype for Business server. That's kind of the intelligence, the core intelligence that will register the users, that will provide the resources to make phone calls, that will provide the resource to make conferencing, instant messaging, video conferencing, desktop sharing. So that's kind of the core, the quarterback, the controller of everything. But around it, you need different things to enable different applications. So, for instance, you can federate Skype for Business with other businesses. That's what you see on the left here with all these clouds. You can, for instance, federate or communicate with Office 365 users, cloud users. You can use this infrastructure to, if I'm working from home or if I'm traveling, I can access my Lync corporate infrastructure directly from my computer, as long as I have an internet access, internet connectivity. Okay? You can federate if I have a supplier, like a very close supplier to my enterprise, and they also have Lync, and they communicate all the time with my employees. You can find ways to federate. So users from both companies can almost transparently share and work on documents and things like that. If you move your way to the bottom left, you see there, SBCs and gateways that are more standard voice over IP infrastructure units that are required. Microsoft doesn't make those, but has partners with companies like Sangoma to offer these so that the Lync environment can also communicate with the non-Lync environment, the normal legacy network or the normal voice over IP networks. So you need this infrastructure. And then if you look, there's multiple servers icons on the right side where you can enhance the Skype for Business server. So things like Office Web Apps, which is the top right icon, allows if I want to communicate, I want to do a sharing session with someone that doesn't have Lync. Okay, Office Web Apps will enable all the Lync functionality through their web browser. So that's a very neat application, because now you can set up meetings on the fly with your, maybe a potential customer, and you can share a document, and they can work on the document with you. So that's a great enhancement. It's not mandatory, but it's a great enhancement. You'll have to leverage other products from Microsoft, like Active Directory for authentication of user. It integrates with, email server, like Exchange. Microsoft Exchange can be used as your super voicemail enhancement around Skype for Business. And then if you have, if you're a company that has multiple branches, there's also ways of having your branches work from a survivable branch appliance, for instance, that can should you lose connectivity with the data center, the users at the remote site still have. So it still have functionality. So it's a big, complex interaction of many servers. These things can sit in physical machines, they can sit in VMs, they can sit in data centers, in the cloud, whatever. But there's a lot of moving parts, and sometimes, it shows that it's powerful, but it's not so. It's fairly complex. You need good expertise to be able to set that whole environment.
I'd like to focus on the bottom two left points that you have on this diagram. The first one is, what is a gateway, and why? And then we'll talk about why you need one.
Yeah. So should you deploy a voice over IP infrastructure in your enterprise, Link, or could be any voice over IP PBX, of course, as an enterprise, you need to be able to call anywhere, because that's your reason to be in business, right? You need to be able to get and make calls anywhere. And sometimes the interconnection that you have to the phone network is still the legacy phone network. So you need a bridge, you need a gateway that will sit in the middle between that legacy network. Maybe it's a T1 with ISD and PRI, and on the other side, it has to interface with a SIP and voice over IP and RTP and all those kinds of protocols on the other side. So a gateway is like a big translator, that will sit in the middle, will understand the protocols from the legacy side, from the voice over IP side, and inside will, do the proper translation so that calls are transparent, inbound or outbound calls are transparent. So that's essentially what a voice over IP gateway is.
And let's talk a little more about why I need one and what's the charts on the right mean.
Yeah, a lot of people say, everything's voice over IP these days, but when you look, the transition is happening surely, but slowly. So you still have, in the North American Enterprise Survey, it's 2013, and it's not that old, but, so probably the numbers would be a bit lower now, but still have, back in 2013, actual numbers, 71% of the survey were using T1 lines, good old T1 lines, good old legacy PSTN line. Projection for this year, still over half of enterprise would be using PRI. In parallel, there's a phenomenon that's happening is there's also SIP trunking that is becoming more and more popular, and the numbers are growing super fast, from 38 to 58. But there's still a good chunk of people that, that's their way of interfacing. And if you want to help them migrate to a UC solution or a voice over IP based solution in their office environment, they will need a gateway to be able to connect to the rest of the world. So still big numbers, yeah.
As I understand it, with Skype for Business, I can go PC to PC or devices like that without any trouble. But then I have the problem of I got to talk to people off my network, especially the PSTN, and I think this diagram shows that very nicely.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a lighter weight version of the one that I had a bit earlier, where I'm showing, so yes, all these users can do instant messaging between each other, they can make phone calls between each other using Link, but, eventually, they need to call people from, maybe they call home, right? And at home they might not have a Link, right? Or you call one of your sales guys that's on the road on their mobile phone. So you need this path, that kind of runs towards the bottom left of the slide, right? That goes between this mediation server and the voice over IP gateway that allows you to translate this Link world into the PSTN world. Yeah.
But there's also another alternative going to the PSTN, and that's called SIP trunking, and that's a different kind of box.
Exactly. So this is like SIP trunking I mentioned is still, I would say, infancy. We hear about it more and more and more. It's phenomenal growth, and this is now, companies are interconnecting their environment completely with voice over IP all the way, and that's people, the industry labels this as SIP trunking. That opens up, there's a lot of advantages, and a lot of times you save money, the bandwidth, the ability to add users, decrease bandwidth is a lot more elastic, a lot more easier to set up. It's just kind of shaping bandwidth as opposed to ordering new T1s or ordering new phone lines from the phone company. So there's a lot of reasons to move to SIP trunking. It also opens up new challenges because now, with the SIP protocol, you expose your data network, your enterprise network, to the outside world a bit differently with a new protocol. And a lot of people protect their data networks with firewalls, which are great, but are really designed for data, and with not really tailored to protect you around SIP. So there's a whole new category of products that are called session border controllers, or SBCs, that are that sit at the edge of your network, of your data network, to protect your voice over IP infrastructure, to secure your voice over IP infrastructure. So that's why you see it. You might have a SIP to SIP connection from left to right of that, but the SBC sits there as a I will say it's a specialized voice over IP firewall. And that's the role that an SBC kicks in when you move to SIP trunking and your connectivity is SIP end-to-end.
Would you spend a moment on the next two slides talking a little bit about the gateways, and then the session border controller, and then we'll move back into Skype some more? Yeah.
So if, up to now we've been sort of talking about the infrastructure and all the nodes and elements you need. So should you, if one of our customers decide to deploy Lync or Skype for Business with their own server, their own data center, and need gateways, Sangoma has products for those, and we have these Vega 100, 200, 400, which are, go serve a T1 interface or up to 4 T1 interface. So these are certified against Microsoft Lync. We've gone through a batteries of tests to get certified. So in confidence, customers can purchase these gateways and be able to interconnect their link deployment with the PSTN network.
And the next page, you have the similar kind of offering with the session border controllers.
Exactly. So same as with, so in the case of PSTN legacy, you need gateways. Now, if you go to SIP trunking, you would need the trigger. That would be the trigger to get a session border controller. And there, Sangoma also has a whole family of product that are also certified, that went through all the batteries of testing and third-party verification. And we have a whole series that goes from very tiny, 25 session, for SMB. We also have a lot of customers now use virtualized. They don't virtualize infrastructure. So we have a completely software version of our SBCs that can be loaded onto a VM, in VMware or using Hyper-V or whatever in your data center. And we also have, for larger companies, a more powerful SBC that goes all the way to 4,000 sessions. So we tend to see those in very large, 1,000 user companies or like call centers. But there's a whole range here again. Yeah.
I'd like to talk about the next slide because I think it's my perspective from the enterprise viewpoint is what are my goals here? And when I look at all the stuff you've been telling about all the components, saying this is not so easy to deploy, it looks kind of complex. There is no single platform at all. In other words, it's a multi-box solution. It's not that flexible, but what I'm also concerned about is the risk here. I don't do Lync every day. So how about you talk about Express for Lync, which is one of your solutions?
Yes, absolutely. So if we go back to this infrastructure slide, right, and especially, in big companies, big enterprise, that might not be so intimidating because the resources are there or the expertise is there. But when you look at this and you're maybe like I'm going to say like a SMB, right? I mean, UC solutions should not be the playground only for large companies. It's very useful for anyone, right? Even, any company these days have people on the road and need to share, or work from home or whatever. So when you look at this, it's complex. You have to source a lot of service, source a lot of licenses, a lot of software components that you have to load and install on various machines. So what we did at Sangoma is we looked at this infrastructure and we said, how can we simplify this for our SMB customers? So if you see like this kind of high shaded area in light blue or light gray, what we've decided to do is take all these components and prepare them pre-install them onto a single device, which is, I believe, the next slide.
Yeah, or link in a box.
Yeah. So what we call Link Express, okay, and it comes, our product that's called Link Express takes all these, this messy diagram that we saw on the previous slide is now everything is kind of loaded inside this one box, and it simplifies the deployment. There's less boxes. It lowers your risks. You still have to configure Microsoft Link and all the interaction, but you can save 2-3 days easy by just taking our box, powering it up, setting up IP address and start configuring, as opposed to sourcing all these various modes and components separately and get going. So that's the whole intent here. And if we go, I believe, to the next slide, so that's that box. There's a picture you see there on the bottom right, and these are all the bullets. If you read back to my slide with all the infrastructure, you'll recognize all these bullets. Each bullet is one of those icons from my complex diagram that is preloaded on that box. And it's a complex, not a complex, but it's an intricate setup of Windows server software with virtual machines using the Microsoft Hyper-V platform. And inside these multiple VMs all sitting on that same box, you find all the functionality you need to get going, to get your company going. And this box, you might say, hey, it's just one U. How can this thing all run on the same box? We have benchmarked this platform using the Microsoft traffic engineering tool that they provide, up to 1,000 users. Okay? So we have several customers that are in the 700, 800 range of users running their whole Link deployment from this one box.
If I might summarize it, in a sense, you truly integrate all of this, is where your previous picture really said it was segregated components for Link.
Yes, exactly.
Can we talk about some use cases now?
Yeah. So because we have all these modules or these components, right, built in on the same box, Link Express, or what we call now Skype for Business Express, if you will, is very flexible because now you can deploy it in multiple environments. One of the main use case that we see is with Office 365. So Office 365 is a cloud solution by Microsoft, and it has multiple levels of licensing. But there's a level of licensing called Enterprise Level 4, or E4. So Office 365 E4, and that E4 provides all the licensing for Link. And to be able to use Link on premise with Office 365 in the cloud, you need to deploy some servers. And a lot of companies that are attracted to Office 365 are small businesses because it's easy to configure what's in the cloud. So when they want to marry Link with Office 365, very easy to take our box and get going. It's very, very simple, as opposed to, again, sourcing all these components separately. The next one is like branch office. So, many companies are distributed and may have a big central site and many branches, like a bank or a school board. So if you want to deploy Link across your enterprise, then you wonder, how do I keep my remote users efficient and working and managing the bandwidth? So branch office is what, there's a branch office mode of using Link, and our box can be used for that. Some customers might say go greenfield, so they get rid of their old PBX and install Link as their solution for their enterprise communications. But a lot of people will say, well, I want to phase it in, so I want to be able to work in conjunction with my PBX. So that's the behind an existing PBX. So more like, as opposed to a forklift solution, becomes more of a transition. And there's multiple variants. I can be in front of the PBX. I can remove my IP PBX. I can have, there's a lot of companies that may go to Link, but still have to keep a lot of analog lines, like colleges, for instance. You might have your corporate offices all on Microsoft Link, but maybe the dorms, you're not going to deploy high-end Link phones there, so you're going to keep analog. So there's multiple ways of using the exact same I'm going to say orderable SKU from Sangoma and apply it, configure it to what suits your environment.
I'd like to bring up one of the points that you talked about, and that was the analog lines. And I think what's important here is a lot of people don't realize you'll spend more on the phones than you will on the boxes and software as a replacement. So you really are influenced to keep your analog devices as long as possible.
Exactly. If you know, it has always been a big expense, whether you, in the old days, buying a PBX, you know, if you put 1,000 lines, there's 1,000 phones, and, you know, some of them will get advanced phones, some of them will get analog. So when you migrate that infrastructure to Lync, you may not want to buy 1,000 voice over IP phones. So a proportion of those you might want to keep your analog lines. So the important message is that you can keep your analog phones and analog lines and on-ramp them to the Lync interface by using voice over IP gateways. And a product that Sangoma has is this Vega 3000G that can hook up 24 analog lines, right? And convert these analog lines to voice over IP and be able to integrate directly with Microsoft Lync. You know, maybe the rest of the offices are running on Lync, some proportion still on analog phones. You know, it could be if you have legacy fax machines, if you have elevator phones, if you have, reception area phones that are analog. So, you know, they don't disappear, and you can reuse them inside your Lync deployment. Yeah.
I'd like to wrap this up and have you talk a little bit about your market, because not everyone knows Sangoma, and then move into the last couple of slides.
Yeah, so it's pretty wide. You know, Sangoma goes from, you know, as my presentation kind of went through, we started with components and gateways and SBCs, moving towards a more complete solution, and we apply that everywhere. You know, we in our business with open source telephony projects, we provide computer telephony cards or DSP cards. So they are subcomponents, but we also offer PBX, full PBX solutions based on PBXact and FreePBX. So our goal is to, you know, for customers that prefer to integrate components and sort of build their own solution, we have that. If you want the full solution from Sangoma, we have that too. That's the way we address the telecom market.
You provide some interesting resources here. Would you go through those?
Yes. I mean, there's many sources, and on our website, on our support website. But here, like, I'm offering a few links. We have, you know, if you want to be able to interoperate your Lync solution with your existing PBX, we have a nice write-up here in this first link. You know, SBCs we touched briefly today, but it's becoming a more and more important factor, and it's still, because SIP trunking is still sort of new, there's a lot of education, I find. You know, people wonder, like, what does an SBC do? So we have a nice white paper here that we call the SBC, the critical component. So if you want to educate yourself as to what an SBC does, or when should I need an SBC, this is a great read. And then we, of course, have all kinds of success stories of not only customers using our Lync Express, but using our existing products. And under tutorials, you know, we have a lot of online documents that, you know, not only documents but videos that allow you to learn about deploying our gear, or more high-level, you know, use case stories around our products.
Well, I can see from the contact list here, you're all over the place. You're a Canadian company, but you do have a lot of presence in the U.S. Is that correct?
Yes. We have. We're based in Canada. We're headquartered in Canada, but we have employees in the U.S., in Latin America, in Europe. We have an R&D center, a support center in India. So we're a global company.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate your time for today.
All right. Thank you. My pleasure.